Hello lovely people, how are you all today? I hope you're well. I'm coming to you from the end of October and my goodness, it feels like we've gone from summer to winter overnight. That's an exaggeration, of course. It's not cold enough to be winter, but it just feels it because literally maybe, I don't know, 10 days ago or so, last weekend, it was 20 degrees, gardening in short sleeve t-shirt, short trousers, gorgeous, and now we're down to 3 or 4 degrees. So I think it feels super cold just because it's changed so quickly. So I've got me a nice warm mug of tea. So at the end of October, this is the end of month 18 without a wage for me. Amazing. And I think, you know, it's going pretty well, I reckon. I have had a bit of a rubbish week and a bit, and I have felt really down in the dumps, but I'm picking myself up and I'm on the way back up. And you know, so much of that is it's to do with the garden. So thank goodness for our gardens. The food, the fresh air, the solitude and time to reflect at times, the companionship. Oh, it's all wonderful. And kind of thinking back over this year for the garden, I mean, it's far from over, absolutely far from over. I'll be harvesting, oh my goodness, right through till March, even into April next year. And the only reason I'll stop harvesting is I'll have to start clearing beds to put new crops in. So it's far from over, but just looking at the store of food I've managed to give myself so far this year, I'm utterly delighted. I've got, I reckon, in terms of the onions, I've got enough onions for 2-3 a week. Yeah, probably about 3 a week to last from now until the next harvest comes out, or I can start plucking a few from the ground next June. I've got more tomatoes than I have ever had. So much so, I think you might remember, I've ended up buying a third freezer, which at the time I thought, wow, that's a bit of an investment, Vivi. But my goodness, I'm so glad I did buy it, because it just takes the stress away from how am I going to preserve things if I don't have enough bottles. You know, a lot of my beans ended up, rather than being dried, I've had to store them frozen because the bean harvest came so late, because they got going so late because they hated the heat. Once we got to the end of August and we had a little bit of rain, oh yeah, then they start growing. So yes, the tomatoes, the new freezer, brilliant, but the tomatoes, my giddy goodness. I reckon I've got about the equivalent of, if you were buying a tin of chopped tomatoes from the shops, probably about 3 or 4 of those a week until the next harvest comes in. Now, I did have more this year than ever before, because initially I lost all of my first load of seeds through that really hinky compost. I did have a bit of seed left, so I re-sowed, but they were so stunted, I didn't think anything was going to happen. And then all the wonderful friends down on my allotment site, they all rallied around, and between them gave me, I think in the end, it was 21 plants. Fabulous. But then, all of my little runts and my really slow to get going suddenly decided to grow. And of course we didn't have blight this year because it was so hot and dry, so that all of my little stunty ones, runty ones, caught up and cropped. So I ended up, I think I counted them, I think I ended up with 50 tomato plants, so no wonder I'm okay for tomatoes. And then of course the squash harvest, my goodness, 50 squash. I couldn't be more happy. So I think kind of getting to the end of October and feeling a little bit rubbish in the last few days, I kicked myself up the backside, hauled myself down to the garden a couple of times and just reminded myself how lucky I am, and just got a little bit back to me and thought about all the wonderful harvests I've had, which are great. So I'm poor as a church mouse, but I'm very, very rich in other things, like food. Now, the big thing for me this month of October, just skipping back to the end of September, I pretty much ruminated at the end of that month. All of my ruminations were about time and how I seem to struggle. Excuse me, I'm having a big gulp. Need to mop my lips. Yes, so I kind of decided that I had to be, something had to change. I had to work out a new routine, work out a new way of working. I wasn't quite sure what, but I knew that I couldn't go on as I was, because I felt that I was always chasing my tail, never finishing one thing, always feeling overwhelmed by the most ridiculous to-do lists. One of the things I'd reflected on about why do I feel like I'm getting nothing done each day and yet I'm working for 16, 17 hours a day? Crazy. One of the things I realised was that I'm not very good if I try to do a little bit of everything each day. So, for example, if I sort of say to myself, right, I'll spend 3 or 4 hours in the garden in the morning, and then in the afternoon I'll spend 3 or 4 hours sewing, and then the evening I'll do some bottling, preserving, and I'll do some admin of my shop, this, that and the other. What I realised is that when I'm, for example, using that example, if I was in the garden, my mind would already be going ahead to, what am I doing this afternoon? What am I doing this evening? How am I going to fit it all in? So I was continually distracting myself with thinking about the next thing I had to do, rather than doing the thing that I'm in the moment doing and doing it properly. So that was a really useful thing to kind of reflect on and have that click moment in my brain. So one of the things I decided at the end of September was just to try it for October to see how it goes, is literally assign a day of the week to a particular task, or days of the week. So, for example, because October is quite busy in the garden in terms of harvesting, preserving, prepping for winter, etc. I knew that I'd be pretty busy in the garden in October, so I will assign myself 3 days to the garden. And they can move depending on the weather, but I would have 3 days for the garden. I would give myself 1 day a week to work on my shop, to do admin, that sort of thing, to do all my online stuff that I sort of need to administrate, which takes up quite a chunk of time. I would have, hopefully, I assigned 2 days a week to sewing and that sort of thing. And then what was my, oh yes, and then I assigned 1 day a week to try and have a bit of downtime, but essentially 1 day a week was for me to do boring things at home, like cleaning, laundry, ironing, shopping. I don't do much shopping, but you know, there's always 1 or 2 little bits and pieces. Maybe a big cook up to get freezer meals prepared and put away for later on. So I didn't want to bite off more than I can chew in terms of outlining the whole month of October, but I did sit down and sort of say, right, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, garden, Tuesday, my shop and other online stuff, Thursday, Friday, sewing, Sunday, the day off, day off / cleaning, boring stuff that I ignore so much. So I planned out my first week, and for each day I assigned my tasks, and I think it was by the Tuesday evening, so 2 days in, that's all I lasted. 2 days in I realised, my goodness Vivi, you write way too much on your list for each day. So even after those first 2 days I felt a bit demoralised that there was still masses on my to-do list for each day. So back to the drawing board, still with my assigned days of the week, but instead of a to-do list with maybe 10, 11, 12 things on, one thing, one main thing, and then maybe a couple of little extras, but they're not essential, so that if I don't do them, I don't feel racked with guilt, I don't feel pressured, I don't go to bed that night worrying about them and when I am going to do them. So that was working quite well for the next 2 or 3 days, but then, and I said this at the end of September, didn't I? I hadn't factored in a day of the week for my great aunt. And we had a little bit of an emergency palaver. She's okay. She's absolutely okay. But we did have a bit of a situation. I think it was by the Friday of that first week. So all my sewing tasks for the Friday, they went out of the window. And then on the Sunday, which was supposed to be the day off / cleaning, I had to actually go down and see her. So I sort of, in a way, I sort of lost 2 days. So when I got home from her on the Sunday night, I wrote down my list for the next week. Honestly, this is how I've had to do it. But I think it's working and it's really helping. So that's why I'm sharing with you guys. So yes, that Sunday night when I came back from her, I was feeling really shattered. Kind of just wanted a bath and a glass of wine. There was no wine in the house, so that wasn't going to happen. So I thought, right, sit down, do the plan for the following week. Quick look at the weather forecast to check my garden days. Absolutely fine to stick with Monday, Wednesday and Saturday. The Saturday I'm trying to stick with because that's when a lot of the other folk are on site, and I think it's really important to just keep those connections. So when I did my plan for the following week, I penciled out the Sunday as a great aunt day, with brackets, if she doesn't need me, if I don't need to go to her, I'll do the cleaning and all that kind of stuff. So what it means is, by penciling my Sunday for her, I have to be prepared for the fact that I have to do laundry one night of the week, that's fine, but the house ain't gonna get cleaned. I don't care. I don't really care, you know. It's not like the Queen ever comes to visit, or my mum, interchangeable. Not saying the Queen is my mum. Anyway, to cut a long story short, this is really, really working well for me. An assigned day of the week for just thinking about one particular thing. A much shorter to-do list, and actually by having the discipline of having a shorter to-do list, it's making me really focus on, is that thing really necessary? Do I really need to do it? Is it something I really need to be worrying about? And more often than not, no, it's not. Excuse me, I've got an itchy schnozzle. And now what I'm finding is I get towards the end of the day, it gets to sort of 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. I'm quite a night owl, so I don't really settle down in the evening till 9, 10 o'clock. Watch a film, something like that, have my bath, do a bit of reading, whatever it is. So I'm finding that by sort of 6 or 7 o'clock, I'm thinking, oh, I've got a couple of hours. I don't know what to do with myself. why didn't I do one of my little outstanding jobs that I didn't put on any list because I didn't want to overwhelm myself, but actually I can get it done. Yay! So, yeah, I'm feeling like a bit of a genius. Look, I think the way we all manage our time, it's very personal, and obviously it depends on your commitments. But it's something that's been bugging me for ages and ages. Hang on, I'm going to have a blow with this nose. It's annoying me. That's really gross. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's been bugging me for ages, and I was kind of almost begrudging my situation and thinking, this is ridiculous. I used to work full-time, I used to garden full-time, I used to look after my great aunt. Why am I not managing it? Well, of course, it's because the garden, food preservation and my great aunt, they've all become like my full-time job. The other thing that I've massively reflected on this month is kind of looking at the much bigger picture of the whole year. So obviously this is my 18 months without a wage, but I feel like it's more like my first full year. Actually, it's not even a full year. I've always done the garden, pardon me, but this year I've obviously introduced the shop, sewing bunting, doing other bits and bobs of sewing jobs privately, just for that little bit of extra cash, a little bit of a cushion, if you like. And it was trying to sort of find a way to cram those things in. So as the year's gone on, what I'm gradually seeing, or the last 6 months, when did I start the shop? Was it June? June, July, August, September, October, 5 months. What I'm gradually learning is the sort of ebb and flow of the work that I need to do in various areas. The garden is always going to be the priority because that's my food. And I pretty much know when the busy times are for the garden, the busy times for preserving and storing the food. But what I didn't know with, say, the shop stuff, or even to a degree making the videos and how much time that takes, my computer is unbearably old and slow. And what I've definitely learned this month is, for example, if I'm downloading footage from my camera, as you guys see it now, into my computer, it can take hours. And I used to sit there looking at the computer going, come on, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. But I'm learning now that while that's happening, I'll go off and I'll do something else. So, for example, I might take some photographs for products for the shop, or I might clean, wash, iron, whatever products for the shop. Whatever it is, I'm like I said, I'm learning the ebb and flow of my year, not just for the garden, but how long things take me for the different bits of all the other bits I'm now doing. And I think going forward into next year, I'm really looking forward to it, actually. I've been behind on so many things, which is why I was in a panic at the end of last month going, with time. I'm now gradually catching up with things, so that I'm hoping that from January, I kind of start with a clean slate, with a really, really good idea of how the year will go in terms of time consumption for various tasks. All these things are new to me, you see. The whole doing anything on the computer is new to me. So now that I'm kind of working out, I'm sort of getting systems in place, if you like. So I'm gradually spending less time babysitting the computer, and I can get on with other things. It's all been such a marvellous revelation to me this month. Yay! I feel a little bit evangelical about it. I hope that all makes sense. It makes sense to me. That's the main thing. The bottom line is, I think if you find that you're feeling like you're always running around like a headless chicken, always chasing your tail, you have to stop. You have to just stop and work out, you know, where are you wasting time? Because we all do waste some time. Where are you wasting time? What are you giving time to that really just doesn't matter and it shouldn't take up your time? Chuck it out, get rid of it. Yeah, it's definitely been a month for learning to work smarter, not necessarily harder. And I think I was definitely guilty of that over the last few months. My default setting is, you have to work harder, Vivi. If it's not working, you need to work harder. So I'm happy to say, at the moment anyway, that I feel like I'm someone who is learning to work smarter, not harder. I mean, I'll always work hard. Can't help it. But there we go. So I think, just looking out at this grey day, look at the light, it's so great. I've had to haul myself over to the window to have enough light to shoot this. Goodness me. Yeah, I feel really optimistic again. I've massively picked myself up in the last couple of days. I can't wait for the winter, in a way. I can't wait for all those lovely, cosy indoor things to do. Yay! I can't wait for the kind of pleasure of stepping out into the garden on a really crisp, frosty day with no one else around and bundled up in scarves and hats and just making the most of even a few minutes outside in the daylight. Oh, bring it on. So, on that note of optimism, I'm going to say cheerio to you all for now, because I've got something else on my list to do. I'm kidding. I'm just going to say cheerio to you all, and I think I might go and read a book for half an hour. So, whatever you're up to, I hope you don't feel like you have to rush. Take your time, make the most of what you're doing, and don't think about the next thing on the list. Just be in the moment. And breathe. I'll see you all again really soon, I hope. But in the meantime, take care, everyone.